Hello and welcome to our program. On our show today, Yogi Mahajan, a writer and somebody who works extensively with young people on helping them understand the self. Yogi, welcome to our program.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
You know, this whole conversation and the context of how young people are seeing themselves and seeing how they fit into the rest of the world. Our education system, Yogi, works extensively on how a young person can fit into the world outside. But how a young person fits into himself or herself, there's great paucity of facilitators and people working in this area. You do a lot of work on the self. How has the experience been so far?
Very positive. I think they are very intense young generation, very intelligent and very open, unlike my generation, which was very much weighed down by elders and their opinions, and we didn't have that kind of freedom. And these young people have a lot of freedom, so they can explore more, they can experiment more.
Right.
And that gives them a leverage.
And I think this whole openness is something that they're a generation ready and waiting, and somewhere people giving the inputs have not realized how critical it is and how receptive the young generation is today.
Yes, so it's easy for them to experiment on new ideas. Also, they are more flexible in overcoming their conditionings. You know, whether you are Hindu, whether you are Muslim, whether you are low caste, all these things don't weigh on their mind.
Okay. Easier for them to move beyond boundaries.
Yes.
And I think somewhere, though, they form opinions fast, but they're not opinionated.
Yes.
And that is what really
and
helps.
What has helped is also the social media, the internet, so that they have access to thought processes anywhere in the world.
Right, right. And so that exchange of information somewhere, there's a lot of leveling of the playing field of how they see each other.
This is I think, the greatest thing that has happened.
Wonderful. So when you grew up, and taking you back many, many years, this whole bit about understanding the importance of the self and that realization, what were some experiences and exposure that made you move in this direction?
Well, it's a very funny story. You know, at that time, my father was the Prime Minister of Kashmir, and there was this thing going on about the Maharaja of Kashmir being plots to assassinate him by the Pakistanis and so forth. But every time he escaped an attempt by them. And one of the episodes was that they were boarding a flight, a private jet, from Srinagar to Jammu, where they were to meet with the Home Minister, Sardar Patel. And just as the Maharaja stepped onto the plane, he had a look at the pilot and he stepped down. And he refused to get onto the flight. The flight took off and exploded in midair.
Wow.
And when my father told me that story, it stayed with me, and I wondered what is there inside of us, that kind of a sensitivity, that kind of a sixth sense, instinct that gives us this kind of a recognition. And then later on, of course, there have been many episodes, even the latest episode of the Malaysian airline MH, which sank, and there was this person who was to board it, and he changed his flight at the last moment, and he was saved. So there is a part of our brain which has all this, but we don't have access to it. We call it collective consciousness. So how to access this collective consciousness was my inner desire.
Okay.
And then in 1976, I met Her Holiness Shree Mataji Nirmala Devi, and she introduced me to this inner energy within us called the Kundalini. And with the Kundalini is rising, we get access to collective consciousness. But it's not a one-day happening. There are many centers of energy that have to be crossed over, which could be blocked for various reasons. They're described as 7 centers of energy or chakras. And each one of us is blocked at something or the other.
True.
So we have to work on it, clear it, so that we have the smooth working of this collective consciousness
Right.
within us.
Yogi, you spoke of saying it's not a one-day effort. It
Yes.
requires many, many years. And at one level, we also understand that whether we're learning a language, Hindi, English, or Marathi, take any language,
Yeah.
it's always not a one-day process.
Yes.
That also takes years of practice. Then somewhere, as how we grow up, why do we feel that all these things which help us tap into our common consciousness or anything related to the spirit is something that can wait? And all the other things and skills that we learn in life need to happen now because they make us productive beings.
Well, now it's the other way around. Because earlier we thought that, spirituality meant that you have to go to Himalayas, sit on a hill or in a mountain cave and get moksha and so forth. So it's something that had to come at the end of your life. But now we realize that this is nothing to do with all this. It's nothing to do with renunciation. It's actually a conscious transformation. It's a process of a transformation of consciousness. And the earlier that happens, the better, because it will help us in all the fields and activities that you just mentioned.
Right.
That it will give us a greater insight into everything we do. It will make us more dynamic. It will give us more penetration.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's the foundation and the basis of any other kind of learning.
Yeah.
Because actually what you're doing is widening your receptivity and
Yeah.
sensitivity to learn all the other peripherals more easily.
Yeah. And over and above that, it gives us an intuitive creativity.
Right.
Till you connect or come into balance, your creativity is either from your subconscious area, that is all those kind of conditionings that you've gathered from the past, or it's from your imagination, which is a supraconscious area.
Okay.
But it's not in the balance, it's not in the present. So when you connect with your Kundalini, this creativity is in the present. And then that creativity gives joy to others. So it's not that like modern art that, each one can interpret it the way he wants to. And either you like it or you don't like it. It's something that is joyous to everybody. For instance, take the painting of Mona Lisa. It's become immortal. People just stand and gaze at it because they become thoughtless. Because it has been created by an artist who's a realized soul, Leonardo da Vinci. And I've talked about it in my book, which is called The Game Changer. And explained how this creativity, which is coming from the source within us, which is collective consciousness, gives joy and gives that feeling to others who watch it. Just like music, if it's a work of a great artist who's connected, it connects with the whole audience and the whole audience enjoys it. They need not understand the finer nuances of music, but they enjoy it nevertheless.
So that means it speaks a different language,
Yes.
which reaches out to parts of us which even we don't know, but the expression is joy.
Yeah, and
at
that
the same
language is the language of the spirit.
Okay, all right. So has age got something to do with it?
No, nothing at all.
When does one really get to learn the language of the spirit?
The moment you start seeking, the moment you start asking a question, why am I here? What is the meaning of life? The moment an inquiry sets in within you, it can be at the age of 7, it can be at the age of 16, it can be 30, it can be 60, but it has to come to everybody.
Okay.
Because this is the age of inquiry. We are questioning everything. That is the beauty of this age.
Okay. So when this inquiry comes into our life, whether in our own heads and hearts or our consciousness or around us, and the young children asking this question,
Yes.
what does one do?
Yes. One responds to them, and the thing is to come down to their level so that they understand what you are saying. Just like recently the wife of the visiting Chinese president was teaching the children and showing them art and works that it inspired the children so much. They didn't speak to each other, they couldn't, but she struck a chord in them. So the same way we can strike a chord in the children by reaching out to them at their level.
This whole bit about, questioning,
Yes.
and I want to come back to the education system because you work extensively also
Yes.
in this field.
Yes.
I think somewhere, are we encouraging young people and children to ask questions, or are we just using them as receptacles to say, this is information coming your way, it's being poured into you? This whole theory of saying we need young people to ask questions and we need emancipated or understanding adults to be able to address them in the right manner. I think that is critical.
Well, I think now, because of the information technology, the children themselves are inquiring. They search on Google, they search on, their taste buds have been aroused by this whole new revolution in technology, and they don't need us anymore to provoke them.
So do you think Google is a set of information and the teacher is dispensable?
Well, it's coming to that because even teaching methods now are set on the screen, but the teacher has a greater role to play in a more intimate development of the child's personality. I think the role has shifted a little bit.
So what role does a teacher